The blood hadn't dried yet when he said my name. I was standing in the doorway of the empty chapel, rain soaking through my nurse's scrubs, my phone dead in my pocket, and I watched him wipe the blade clean with a white handkerchief that would never be white again. 12 men lay scattered across the pews like broken dolls. He moved through the carnage with the precision of someone conducting a symphony, each step deliberate, each breath measured. The silence was so complete I could hear the rain hammering the stained glass windows. He hadn't made a sound during any of it. Not a grunt, not a curse, not even heavy breathing. Just the wet slide of metal through flesh and the soft thud of bodies finding the floor. Then he looked up at me, and his eyes were the color of winter nights, and he spoke. Lee Seo-yeon. My name shouldn't have sounded like that, shouldn't have sounded sacred in the mouth of a killer, but it did. I should have run, should have screamed, should have done anything except stand there with my back pressed against the doorframe and my fingers digging into the splintered wood. But my feet wouldn't move, and my voice wouldn't come, and all I could do was stare at the man who had just carved through a dozen human beings without breaking a sweat. He folded the handkerchief with care, tucked it into his jacket pocket, and started walking toward me. His shoes made no sound on the stone floor. Water dripped from the hem of his long black coat. There was blood on his collar, just a small spray, almost invisible against the dark fabric. His hair was pushed back from his face, revealing sharp cheekbones and a jawline that could cut glass. He looked like he belonged in a boardroom or an art gallery, not standing in a chapel full of corpses. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice low and even like he was commenting on the weather. I finally found my voice, though it came out cracked and small. "Neither should you." His mouth didn't smile, but something shifted in his eyes. Amusement, maybe, or recognition. "You're right, but I had business to finish." "Business?" The word tasted like copper in my mouth. "You killed 12 people." 13, he corrected, glancing back at the carnage with the same expression someone might use when double-checking a grocery list. "There's one behind the altar," he tried to hide. My stomach lurched. I pressed harder against the doorframe, feeling the rain soak through my shoulders, the cold seeping into my bones. "I'm calling the police." "Your phone is dead." How did he know that? How did he know anything about me, including my name? I'd never seen this man before in my life. I was a pediatric nurse at Seoul Memorial Hospital. I lived alone in a one-bedroom apartment in Gangnam. I went to work, came home, sometimes grabbed takeout from the place on the corner. I didn't associate with criminals. I didn't even jaywalk. "Who are you?" I whispered. He stopped 3 feet away from me, close enough that I could see the flecks of darker gray in his eyes, the small scar on his left eyebrow, the way his chest rose and fell with each controlled breath. He wasn't winded, wasn't shaking, wasn't anything except perfectly, terrifyingly calm. "My name is Kang Min-jae," he said, "and you need to come with me." "I'm not going anywhere with you." "You don't have a choice." "Everyone has a choice." "Not you, not anymore." He tilted his head slightly, studying me the way a scientist might study a specimen under a microscope. "Do you know why you're here, Lee Seo-yeon? Do you know why you walked into this chapel on this night at this exact moment?" I was lost. My car broke down 2 blocks away, and I was looking for somewhere to wait out the rain. "No." His voice was gentle, almost kind, which somehow made it worse. "You were followed. The men I just killed were waiting for you. They've been watching you for 3 days. The rain suddenly felt colder. My breath caught in my throat. "What?" "You treated a patient last week. A 7-year-old boy named Park Jae-hoon. He had a compound fracture in his right arm, multiple contusions, and signs of prolonged abuse. You filed a report with Child Protective Services." I remembered. Of course I remembered. The boy had been terrified, flinching every time anyone came near him. His father had claimed it was a playground accident, but the injuries didn't match. I'd done what I was supposed to do, what the law required, what my conscience demanded. "The father is connected to a trafficking ring," Kang Min-jae continued, his tone never wavering from that unsettling calm. "Small time, but ambitious. When you filed that report, you became a problem. They sent these men to make you disappear quietly. No body, no evidence, no investigation." My knees felt weak. I wanted to sit down, but there was nowhere to sit except on the blood-soaked floor. How do you know all this? Because I've been watching you too. The admission should have terrified me more, but somehow it didn't. Maybe because he'd just saved my life. Maybe because the men he'd killed had been planning to do worse to me. Maybe because I was too shocked to feel anything except a strange, floating numbness. Why? I asked. Why would you watch me? Because Park Jae-hoon's father works for someone who owes me a debt. And when I collect on debts, I'm thorough. I learned about you 3 days ago, the same time the trafficking ring did. I've been one step ahead of them ever since. So you killed them? Yes. All of them? Yes. Without a second thought. I gave them first thoughts. They didn't take the opportunity to reconsider. He glanced at his watch, a sleek silver piece that probably cost more than my yearly salary. We have approximately 8 minutes before the cleanup crew arrives. If you're still here when they come, questions will be asked that neither of us wants to answer. So I'll ask again, more directly this time. Will you come with me? I looked past him at the chapel interior, at the 12, no, 13, bodies scattered like evidence of something apocalyptic. I thought about my apartment, my job, my quiet, careful life. I thought about the boy with the broken arm and the terror in his eyes. I thought about the fact that bad people had decided I was expendable, and this man had decided otherwise. If I go with you, I said slowly, what happens then? You stay alive. That's it. That's the whole plan. The rest depends on you. He extended his hand toward me, palm up, an invitation or a command, I couldn't tell which. But we're out of time for negotiations. I stared at his hand. There was blood under his fingernails. Not much, just a thin line of dark red against the pale crescents. He'd killed 13 men without hesitation, without emotion, without any visible sign that it had affected him at all. He was dangerous in a way I couldn't fully comprehend, dangerous in a way that made the rain and the darkness feel like child's play in comparison. But he knew my name. He'd been watching me. He'd put himself between me and the people who wanted me dead. And when he said my name, it had sounded like something precious. I took his hand. His fingers closed around mine, warm and solid, and he pulled me gently away from the doorway and into the chapel's shadows. We moved quickly through a side exit I hadn't noticed, emerging into an alley where a black sedan waited with its engine running. The driver, a young man with a surgical mask covering half his face, didn't look at me as Kang Min-jae opened the back door and guided me inside. The interior smelled like leather and rain. Kang Min-jae slid in beside me, and the door closed with a soft click that felt impossibly final. The driver pulled away from the curb without a word, and I watched through the tinted windows as the chapel disappeared behind us, swallowed by the rain and the night. Where are we going? I asked. Somewhere safe. That's not an answer. It's the only answer that matters right now. I turned to look at him properly for the first time since getting in the car. In the dim light, his face was all sharp angles and shadows, beautiful in a way that felt vaguely threatening. He'd removed his coat, revealing a crisp white shirt that was miraculously unstained. The knife was gone. If I hadn't watched him use it, I might have believed he'd never held a weapon in his life. You said they've been watching me for 3 days, I said. Where? How? Your apartment building has cameras in the lobby. They access the footage. They followed you to and from work. They learned your routine, your habits, the fact that you take the same route home every night and stop at the same convenience store on Thursdays. They knew you'd be vulnerable tonight because your car was scheduled for maintenance, and the rental company gave you a vehicle with a faulty alternator. How do you know about my car? I know everything about you, Lee Seo-yeon. I know you graduated top of your nursing class. I know you volunteer at the free clinic in Itaewon twice a month. I know you have no family, no close friends, no one who would immediately notice if you disappeared. I know you eat the same jjajangmyeon from the place on the corner every Friday night because you told yourself years ago that you deserved one predictable pleasure in an unpredictable world. I know you're afraid of dogs because one bit you when you were 6, and I know you're afraid of being alone even though you choose it every single day. The car suddenly felt too small. I pressed myself against the door, my heart hammering against my ribs. You're insane. I'm thorough. You're a stalker. I'm a businessman. Information is currency. I trade in both. What do you want from me? He was quiet for a long moment, his gaze fixed on something beyond the window. The city lights streaked past us in blurred lines of neon and gold. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer, almost contemplative. Nothing, he said. I want nothing from you, but the people who sent those men will send more. The trafficking ring doesn't forgive interference, and you interfered. Your report has already triggered an investigation. Park Jae-hoon is in protective custody. His father is being questioned. The organization is unraveling, and they blame you. I did my job. I know, that's why you're still alive. I don't understand. He turned to look at me then, and the weight of his attention was almost physical. You could have ignored the signs. Most people do. You could have convinced yourself it wasn't your responsibility, that someone else would handle it, that getting involved would only cause you trouble. But you didn't. You saw a child suffering and you acted. That kind of integrity is rare. It's worth protecting. So this is charity. You're playing guardian angel. I'm many things, Lee Seo-yeon, but an angel isn't one of them. I saved you because it served my purposes. The trafficking ring has been a thorn in my side for 6 months. They operate in territories I control, but they're backed by someone with enough influence that I couldn't move against them directly without starting a war. You gave me an excuse. The men in that chapel were their enforcers, their muscle. With them gone, the organization is crippled. Within 48 hours, it will collapse entirely. You were the catalyst I needed. So I'm just a tool, a convenient excuse for you to commit murder. If that makes it easier for you to accept, then yes. It doesn't make anything easier. I pressed my palms against my eyes, feeling the exhaustion crash over me in waves. This is insane. This entire night is insane. You're insane. And I'm sitting in a car with a mass murderer like it's the most normal thing in the world. You're in shock. That's normal. Nothing about this is normal. You'll adjust. I don't want to adjust. I want to go home. You can't. Your home isn't safe. It won't be safe for a while. How long is a while? That depends on how quickly I can eliminate the remaining threats. I dropped my hands and stared at him. You're going to kill more people. If necessary. And I'm supposed to just accept that. Just sit here and let you turn me into an accessory to murder. You became an accessory the moment you got in this car. But if it helps, most of the people I killed deserve it. I'm selective about my violence. That doesn't help at all. He almost smiled. Almost. No, I suppose it wouldn't. The car turned down a narrow street lined with traditional Hanok houses, their tiled roofs gleaming in the rain. We pulled up to one at the end of the block, larger than the others, surrounded by a high wall and a gate that opened automatically as we approached. The driver parked in a covered garage, and Kang Min-jae got out, coming around to open my door before I could reach for the handle. Welcome to my home, he said. I climbed out slowly, my legs shaky beneath me. The garage was immaculate, housing 3 other vehicles, a motorcycle, an SUV, and something low and sleek that probably cost more than my entire life. The floor was polished concrete. The walls were lined with cabinets and tools arranged with military precision. It looked less like a garage and more like a showroom. This way. Kang Min-jae gestured toward a door at the back of the space, and I followed because I didn't know what else to do. The door led into a mudroom, which led into a kitchen that made me stop and stare. It was stunning, all clean lines and natural wood, with modern appliances that gleamed like jewelry and windows overlooking a small garden where bamboo swayed in the wind. Rain drummed against the glass. A kettle sat on the stove. Fresh fruit rested in a bowl on the counter. You live here? I asked. When I'm not traveling. It's beautiful. I'll show you to your room. He led me through a hallway adorned with paintings that looked expensive and possibly stolen, up a staircase with steps worn smooth by time, and into a bedroom that was larger than my entire apartment. The walls were papered in soft gray. The bed was massive, covered in white linens that looked like clouds. There was a desk by the window, a bookshelf full of titles in Korean and English, and a door that presumably led to a bathroom. "You'll be comfortable here," Kang Min-jae said. "There are clothes in the closet that should fit. The bathroom is stocked. If you need anything else, there's an intercom by the bed. Press the button and someone will respond." "Someone, not you. I have business to attend to tonight, but I'll be back by morning." "More killing. More cleanup, the kind that doesn't involve knives." He paused in the doorway, his hand resting on the frame. "Try to sleep, Lee Seo-yeon. You're safe here, safer than you've been in 3 days." "You keep saying that, safe, but I don't feel safe. I feel like I've been dropped into someone else's nightmare." "Then consider this." He met my eyes, and his expression was unreadable. "In your nightmare, you're the one who wakes up. In theirs, they don't." He closed the door behind him, and I heard his footsteps recede down the hallway. Then silence. Just the rain and the faint hum of the house settling around me. I walked to the window and looked out at the garden, at the bamboo bending under the weight of the storm, and I thought about the men in the chapel. Thought about the way Kang Min-jae had moved through them like a ghost, efficient and merciless. Thought about the way he'd said my name. Lee Seo-yeon. Like a prayer, like something worth saving. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass and let the tears come. Not for the men who'd died. They'd been planning to kill me, and I couldn't summon any sympathy for them. But for the life I'd lost the moment I walked into that chapel. For the illusion of safety I'd been living under, the belief that doing the right thing would protect me. For the terrifying realization that the world was darker and more complicated than I'd ever wanted to acknowledge. And for the fact that the man who'd saved me was the most dangerous person I'd ever met, and I wasn't sure if I should thank him or run from him. Maybe both. I didn't sleep, couldn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed and watched the rain until the sky started to lighten, gray dawn bleeding into the darkness like watercolor on paper. Somewhere around 5 in the morning, I heard a car pull into the garage, footsteps on the stairs, a door opening and closing down the hall, then silence again. At 6, there was a soft knock on my door. "Come in," I said, my voice hoarse from disuse. Kang Min-jae entered carrying a tray with tea and rice porridge, setting it on the desk with the same precision he brought to everything else. He'd changed clothes, now wearing dark slacks and a charcoal sweater that made him look less like a killer and more like a university professor. His hair was damp from a shower. He smelled like cedar and rain. "You didn't sleep," he observed. "Neither did you." "I rarely do." He poured the tea into 2 cups, handing one to me. "Insomnia is an occupational hazard. Of being a crime lord. Of being responsible for too many things." He sat in the chair by the desk, cradling his own cup. "How are you feeling?" "Like I've been hit by a truck." "Understandable. Are you going to tell me what happens now?" "That depends on what you want to happen." "I want to go back to my life." "That's not possible, not yet." He took a sip of tea, his eyes never leaving mine. "The trafficking ring has collapsed, as I predicted. The remaining members are scrambling to save themselves. Some will run, some will try to retaliate. I'm dealing with both contingencies, but it will take time. Until then, you stay here." "As what, a prisoner?" "As a guest under my protection." "What's the difference?" "A prisoner would be locked in. You're free to move around the house and the grounds. There's a library on the 1st floor, a gym in the basement, and a meditation room in the east wing. My staff has been instructed to accommodate your needs. The only restriction is that you can't leave the property without an escort." "For how long?" 2 weeks, maybe 3. "I have a job, responsibilities, people who will notice if I disappear." "Your supervisor at Seoul Memorial received a call this morning informing them that you've contracted a severe flu and will be recovering at a relative's home for the next 2 weeks. Your rent has been paid ahead. Your mail is being forwarded. Your life is on pause, but it's not over." I stared at him. "You thought of everything." "I always do." "And if I refuse, if I walk out that door right now and don't look back?" "Then you'll be dead within 12 hours. His voice was matter-of-fact, not threatening, just stating an observable truth. "The people who want you gone are professionals, Lee Seo-yeon. They're patient. They'll wait for the right moment, and when it comes, you won't see it coming. I can stop them, but only if you let me. By keeping me locked in a gilded cage. By keeping you alive long enough for the threat to pass. He set down his cup and leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. I understand your anger. I understand your fear. But I need you to understand something too. The world you lived in before last night was an illusion. You thought safety was guaranteed, that doing the right thing would protect you. It doesn't. Goodness doesn't shield anyone from violence. It just makes you a target for people who see morality as weakness. What I'm offering you is reality. Uncomfortable, messy, violent reality. But at least it's honest. You're asking me to trust you. I'm asking you to trust that I have more invested in your survival than anyone else does. Dead, you're a cautionary tale. Alive, you're leverage. And leverage is valuable. So it's just business. Everything is business, even mercy. He stood, smoothing his sweater with one hand. Eat the porridge, rest if you can. I'll check on you this evening. He was almost to the door when I spoke again. Why did you say my name like that? He paused, his hand on the doorknob, his back to me. Like what? Like a prayer, in the chapel. You said my name like it was something sacred. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then he looked back at me over his shoulder, and his expression was unreadable. Because in that moment, he said quietly, you were. He left before I could ask him what he meant. I spent the day exploring the house because I couldn't stand to be alone with my thoughts. It was massive, room after room of carefully curated beauty. The library was 2 stories tall, with a ladder on wheels and a fireplace that looked like it had been transplanted from a European castle. The gym was stocked with equipment I'd only seen in luxury fitness magazines. The meditation room was empty except for cushions and a view of the garden that made my chest ache with its simple perfection. I saw 2 members of the staff, a middle-aged woman who introduced herself as Mrs. Cho and refused to meet my eyes, and a young man named T-Min who brought me lunch and made polite small talk about the weather. Both of them moved through the house like ghosts, appearing when needed and vanishing the moment their tasks were complete. Neither of them seemed surprised by my presence. Neither of them asked questions. By late afternoon, I found myself back in the library, pulling books off the shelves at random. Most were in Korean, but there was a section in English, American classics, British mysteries, translated poetry. I pulled out a worn copy of Rilke and opened it to a random page. Perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses who are only waiting to see us act, just once, with beauty and courage. I closed the book and pressed it to my chest, feeling something crack open inside me. Courage, beauty. I'd acted with both when I filed that report, when I chose to protect a child instead of protecting myself. And now I was paying the price. But maybe that was the point. Maybe courage was never supposed to be convenient. Maybe beauty was always supposed to hurt. You like Rilke? I spun around. Kang Min-jae was standing in the doorway, still wearing the same clothes from this morning, though he looked more tired now, shadows under his eyes and tension in his shoulders. I didn't hear you come in, I said. I'm good at being quiet. He walked into the library, his hands in his pockets. Did you eat? Yes. Sleep? No. You should try. Your body needs to recover from the shock. My body is fine. It's my mind I'm worried about. He smiled, a real smile this time, small but genuine. Fair enough. He gestured to the book in my hands. What does Rilke say? I read him the quote, and he listened with his head tilted, considering. When I finished, he nodded slowly. He's right. Dragons are easier to face than the alternative. Which is? Realizing that the princesses are just as dangerous as the dragons. They just hide it better. I set the book down on a nearby table. Is that what you are? A dragon pretending to be something else? No, I'm exactly what I appear to be. It's everyone else who pretends. You don't think very highly of people. I think people are capable of extraordinary things, both terrible and wonderful. I've seen the full spectrum. It's made me realistic. Cynical, you mean? Perhaps. He moved to the window, looking out at the garden where the rain had finally stopped and the bamboo stood still in the fading light. But cynicism is just disappointed idealism. And I was an idealist once, long ago. What happened? Life, he said it simply, without bitterness. The kind of life that teaches you that good intentions don't matter if you don't have the power to protect them. I learned to build that power. And I learned that power is neither good nor evil. It's a tool. What matters is how you use it. And how do you use it? To protect the things I decide are worth protecting. He turned back to me, and his gaze was steady. Like you. I'm not a thing. No, you're a person who made a choice that put you in danger. And I'm a person who decided that your choice was worth more than the lives of the men who wanted to punish you for it. Call it whatever you want. Protection, self-interest, calculation. The result is the same. You're alive. They're not. Do you ever regret it, the killing? No. Never. Never. He said it without hesitation, without doubt. Regret implies you believe there was a better choice available. There wasn't. Those men made their decisions. I made mine. Regret is a luxury for people who have the privilege of ignorance. I don't have that privilege. I wanted to argue with him. Wanted to tell him he was wrong, that there was always another way, that violence was never the answer. But I thought about the men in the chapel, thought about what they'd been planning to do to me, and the words died in my throat. Because he was right. In that moment, in that place, there had been no other choice. Not for him, not for me. Thank you, I said quietly. He blinked, surprised. For what? For saving my life, for keeping me safe, for being honest with me even when the truth is uncomfortable. I met his eyes. I don't understand you, Kang Min-jae. I don't know if I ever will, but I'm grateful, and I wanted you to know that. Something shifted in his expression, something soft and unguarded that was gone so quickly I almost thought I'd imagined it. He nodded once, sharp and decisive. You're welcome, Lee Seo-yeon. We stood there in the library as the sun set beyond the windows, two people from different worlds who'd collided in blood and rain and were now trying to figure out what came next. I didn't know the answer. Didn't know if there was an answer. But for the first time since walking into that chapel, I felt something other than fear. I felt curious. The days blurred together in a strange rhythm. I woke with the sun, ate breakfast alone, spent hours in the library or the meditation room or walking the garden paths. Kang Min-jae appeared and disappeared like a ghost, sometimes gone for days at a time, sometimes sitting across from me at dinner and making quiet conversation about books or music or nothing at all. He never told me where he went or what he did, and I never asked. Some truths were better left unspoken. Mrs. Cho warmed to me slowly, teaching me how to make proper kimchi and sharing stories about her grandchildren. Min turned out to be a university student working part-time, studying engineering and dreaming of designing sustainable buildings. The house filled with small routines, small kindnesses, small moments of normalcy that felt absurd given the circumstances, but comforting nonetheless. On the 8th day, Kang Min-jae found me in the garden just after dawn. I was sitting on a stone bench watching the koi swim lazy circles in the pond, my breath misting in the cold air. He sat down beside me without asking, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from him. How are you sleeping? He asked. Better. The nightmares are less frequent. That's good. Is the threat gone? Almost. 2 more days, maybe 3. Then you can go back to your life. I should have felt relieved, should have felt excited. Instead, I felt something closer to loss. What happens after I leave? You go back to work. You resume your routines. You forget this ever happened. I won't forget. No, he agreed. You won't, but you'll move on. That's what people do. They survive and they move on. What about you? I'll still be here, still doing what I do. Killing people who deserve it. Among other things. I turned to look at him, really look at him, in the pale morning light. He was beautiful in a way that hurt, all sharp edges and controlled power, but there was something lonely in his eyes, something that made me want to reach out and touch him, bridge the distance between us. Do you ever want something different? I asked. A life that doesn't involve violence. I wanted that once, when I was young and stupid. It didn't work out. What happened? I fell in love with someone who couldn't survive in my world. She tried. God, she tried so hard. But the violence found her anyway, and I couldn't stop it. After she died, I stopped trying to be anything other than what I am. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a long time ago, and it taught me an important lesson. Which is? That love is a weakness if you're not strong enough to protect it. I wasn't strong enough then. I am now. Is that why you saved me? Because you're strong enough now to protect what you choose to protect? Maybe. He looked at me, and his gaze was intense. Or maybe I saved you because you reminded me that there are still people in the world worth the trouble. My breath caught. The air between us felt charged, dangerous in a different way than the violence had been. I should have pulled back, should have maintained the distance, but I didn't. Kang Min-jae, I said softly. Yes. When you said my name in the chapel, like a prayer, did you mean it? Yes. Why? Because you were the only pure thing in that room, the only thing that didn't belong to the violence, and I needed to remember what that felt like, what it meant to see something worth saving. He stood abruptly, breaking the moment. I have a meeting. I'll see you at dinner. He left before I could respond, and I sat alone in the garden watching the koi and trying to understand the ache in my chest. It wasn't fear, wasn't gratitude. It was something more complicated, something that felt like recognition. Like we were two sides of the same coin, him with his violence, me with my healing. Both of us trying to make sense of a world that didn't make sense. Both of us alone. On the 11th day, everything changed. I was in the library reading when T-Min burst through the door, his face pale. You need to hide, now. I stood, my heart already racing. What's wrong? Someone breached the perimeter. The boss is dealing with it, but you need to get to the safe room. Where's the safe room? I'll show you, come on. He grabbed my hand and pulled me out of the library, down the hallway, through a door I'd assumed was a closet. Inside was a staircase leading down into darkness. T-Min flicked a switch, and lights flickered on, revealing a small room with concrete walls, a reinforced door, and enough supplies to last a week. Stay here, he said. Don't come out until the boss gives the all clear. What about you? I have to help with the defenses. Lock the door behind me. He was gone before I could argue, and I stood alone in the safe room listening to the muffled sounds of chaos above. Shouting, breaking glass, a single gunshot that made me flinch, then silence. I don't know how long I waited. Time moved strangely in the concrete room, minutes stretching into hours or maybe the other way around. I sat on the floor with my back against the wall and my arms wrapped around my knees, trying not to think about what was happening upstairs. Trying not to imagine Kang Min-jae hurt or dead. Trying not to acknowledge how much the thought of losing him terrified me. When the door finally opened, I scrambled to my feet, my heart in my throat. Kang Min-jae stood in the doorway and he was a mess. Blood on his hands, his face, his clothes. A cut above his eyebrow that was still bleeding. His sweater was torn, but he was alive. He was standing. He was looking at me with an expression I couldn't read. Are you hurt? He asked. No, are you? Nothing serious. He stepped into the room, and I saw that he was limping slightly, favoring his right leg. It's over, you're safe. What happened? The last members of the trafficking ring. They found out where you were and decided to make one final attempt. They failed. Are they dead? Yes, he said it simply without emotion. Then, quieter, all of them. The threat is gone, Lee Seo-yeon, completely gone. You can go home tomorrow if you want. I should have felt relieved, should have felt free. Instead, I felt something crack inside me, and before I could stop myself, I was crossing the room and wrapping my arms around him. He stiffened, surprised, then slowly, carefully, his arms came up to hold me back. Thank you, I whispered against his chest. Thank you for everything. He didn't say anything. Just held me in the concrete room while the adrenaline drained out of both of us, and I felt his heartbeat steady and strong beneath my cheek. We stayed like that for a long time, two people who'd survived violence together, who'd seen each other at our worst, and somehow found something worth protecting in the wreckage. When we finally pulled apart, his eyes were darker than I'd ever seen them. You should get cleaned up. Mrs. Cho will bring you dinner. What about you? I need to take care of some things, but I'll see you before you leave tomorrow. He turned to go, and I caught his hand. Kang Min-jae. Yes. I don't want to go. He went very still. What? I don't want to go back, not yet, maybe not ever. The words tumbled out before I could think them through, raw and honest. I know that's insane. I know I should be desperate to leave to get back to my normal life, but I'm not, because my normal life was lonely, and this, whatever this is, it's not, and I don't want to be alone anymore. You don't know what you're saying. I do. I'm saying that I see you, Kang Min-jae. I see what you are, what you do, and I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid of going back to a world where I pretend that violence doesn't exist, where I pretend that safety is guaranteed, where I pretend that I don't need anyone. I'm tired of pretending. I can't give you a normal life. I don't want a normal life. I want an honest one. He pulled his hand from mine, and for a moment I thought he was going to walk away, going to reject me, going to tell me I was being foolish. But instead he cupped my face in both hands, his touch gentle despite the blood still staining his skin, and he looked at me like I was something precious. You're going to regret this, he said. Maybe, but I'd regret leaving more. You don't understand the world I live in, the things I've done, the things I'll have to continue doing. Then teach me, let me understand, let me choose this with my eyes open. Why? His voice was rough, almost desperate. Why would you want this, want me? Because when you said my name in that chapel, I heard something I've never heard before. I heard someone see me. Not the nurse, not the good person, not the woman who does the right thing. Just me, Lee Seo-yeon. And I realized I've been invisible my whole life, going through the motions, surviving but not living. And I don't want to be invisible anymore. He closed his eyes, his forehead resting against mine. You're going to destroy me. Or save you. Isn't that what dragons and princesses do? He laughed, a small, broken sound. Then he kissed me, and it was nothing like I'd imagined. It wasn't violent or possessive or desperate. It was careful, reverent, like I was something that might break if he wasn't gentle enough, like I was the prayer and he was the supplicant. When we pulled apart, his eyes were open and clear, and I saw the decision in them before he spoke. Stay then, he said. Stay and learn what this life means. Stay and see if you can survive it. Stay and let me try to be something other than what I've always been. What's that? Alone. I smiled, and it felt like the first real smile I'd had in years. Then we'll be alone together. That's not how being alone works. Then we'll make it work a different way. He shook his head, but he was almost smiling too. You're going to be the death of me, Lee Seo-yeon. No, I said, taking his hand again, lacing my fingers through his. I'm going to be the reason you stay alive. We went upstairs together, and Mrs. Cho fussed over his injuries while I sat at the kitchen table and watched him submit to her ministrations with surprising patience. T-Min appeared with updates on the cleanup, speaking in code I didn't understand, but that seemed to satisfy Kang Min-jae. The house settled back into its rhythms, but something had shifted, something fundamental. I didn't leave the next day, or the day after that. My apartment stayed empty, my job stayed on pause, and my life stayed suspended in this strange new reality where I lived in a beautiful house with a dangerous man and learned what it meant to exist in a world where violence was currency and protection was a gift. Kang Min-jae taught me how to shoot, his hands steady on my shoulders as he corrected my stance. He taught me how to read body language, how to spot a threat, how to move through the world with awareness instead of blind faith in safety. He taught me his language, the language of power and consequence, of debts and obligations, of lines drawn and defended. And I taught him mine. I taught him how to laugh without cruelty, how to touch without taking, how to exist in a moment without calculating its value. I taught him that vulnerability wasn't weakness, that trust was a choice, that love didn't have to be a liability if both people were strong enough to carry it. Months passed, then a year. The house became home. Mrs. Cho became family. Min finished his degree and started working for Kang Min-jae full-time, designing secure facilities with hidden rooms and elegant lines. I went back to nursing part-time, working at the free clinic in Itaewon where the questions were fewer and the need was greater. And Kang Min-jae continued to do what he'd always done, protect what he'd decided was worth protecting. The difference was now that included me, and I decided to protect him right back. In my own way, with my own methods, with the stubborn insistence that even dragons deserved someone who saw them as more than monsters. We stood in the garden one evening, watching the koi swim their lazy circles, and he turned to me with that same unreadable expression he'd worn the first time he'd said my name. "Do you regret it?" he asked, "staying?" "No. Do you regret letting me?" "No." He pulled me close, his arms around my waist, his chin resting on my shoulder. "You were right, you know. That day in the safe room, you did save me." "From what?" "From believing that violence was all I was, that isolation was all I deserved. From forgetting that there were things in the world more powerful than fear." "Like what?" "Like you, like this. Like the fact that I can kill 12 men in silence and still come home to someone who sees me as human." I turned in his arms, looking up at him. "You are human. You've always been human. You just forgot for a while. And you remembered for me." "That's what prayers do," I said, echoing his words from that first night. "They remember what we've forgotten." He kissed me then, soft and sure, and I tasted rain and cedar and something that felt like peace. The koi swam their circles. The bamboo swayed in the evening breeze. The house stood solid around us, a fortress and a sanctuary, a place where violence and healing met and somehow coexisted. And somewhere in the city, in a chapel that had been cleaned and sanctified and returned to its holy purpose, 12 men who died in silence were just a memory. Just a moment in time when one person had chosen protection over possession, courage over cruelty, life over death. Just a moment when a name had been spoken like a prayer. Lee Seo-yeon. And everything had changed.